Topics that we as enterprise architects love to talk about is getting involved in mergers and acquisitions in the corporate world. Because at the end of the day, a merger, acquisition, or divestiture of a business is one of the most strategic aspects of the business strategy that business leaders will be driving in the corporate world. And these are few and far between when it comes to execution, but getting involved in those is a pretty intricate exercise for enterprise architects. So I was musing on this topic after a recent announcement by my organization, a medtech company, that recently announced that they are going to divest a sizable business unit um, for strategic reasons. Now, this is a medtech company, a medical technology company. And now what I'm going to talk about is all public information out in the open. There is this large business unit for diabetes that they are divesting. And it's going to take 12 to 18 months to divest. And it is a strategic decision. Now, a couple of reasons why this kind of made sense is the diabetes is a business to consumer business in the medtech world because you directly deal with patients on their pumps, insulin pumps, or their consumables. Whereas most of the other business that this company, Medtronic, does is business to business. They sell to HCPs, hospital chains, and physicians who in turn implant these devices on patients. So most of the business is B2B and the diabetes is B2C. So it made sense. Strategic decision that's going to play out. Now, this kind of made me reflect on my journey in M&A as an enterprise architect. Having been in IT services for over 2.5 decades, I've been involved in a fair share of mergers, divestitures. What happens after divestiture of a business unit or divestiture of business units. Now, what really plays out when it comes to the M&A is not your typical EA activity, but EAs do get involved. So let's see what happens. The senior executives get together with consultants, do the M&A review, and those are strategic reviews that are done with the clear focus on the business strategy, either to top line growth. By acquiring, you want to grow the business, or by divesting, you want to divest a business that's not strategically aligned with your growth. Now, once those decisions are taken, and those are taken with the financial lens very clearly in focus, after they're taken, the announcements are made. The announcements are public to the market because the market is what drives the stock value. After the announcements, pretty much all of us are begin to digest what it means. If you are an employee in one of those business units or in IT, the core services that could get involved in these exercises. Now, what happens is the organization very quickly puts together a team with a strong leader, an M&A leader, right? In this case, for divestiture, you're going to be a leader who is going to look at all aspects, bring in the functional experts. You'll have experts from HR, from supply chain, from finance, from IT, from operations, and maybe facilities management. And each of the SMEs will begin to look at the M&A from that lens. Say HR is going to look at, okay, you have 9,000 people working in this diabetes business unit. What happens to them? Do they get rebadged? Do they get offloaded to the new company? Likewise, finance is going to look at the financial aspects. And what happens to the general ledger? What happens to the core finance? Now, how do you decouple the finances of this business unit, the sales and operations of this business unit, and what happens to the financial implications? Likewise, supply chain is going to look at that aspect of it. Likewise, maybe facilities organization is going to look at, okay, so many facilities are focused on the diabetes unit. Here's the HQ of the diabetes unit. what happens to the facility there. And all this is digested by the enterprise architect who may be read in, who may be involved, or the IT leader who is involved, and then starts digesting and then focuses on what happens to IT, right? In the IT world, you're going to have a checklist. You're going to enable the technology services for the new business unit, or look at the load on the existing system. If you have a merger, if you have maybe 10,000 new people coming into your system, and likewise on the network operations, if you divest the business unit or bring in a new business unit, what happens to your core network? What happens to the service contracts that you have? Likewise, the other key aspect is the system landscape. So what happens to the system landscape? There are core systems that are going to be used by that business unit in question. There are core systems that are maybe shared. And then the typical aspects of the TOGAF, right? The strategy, of course, the BDAT, business, we just talked about it. Data, D aspects, the data aspects. What happens to the data? There are core data that are going to be shared. Now, do you clone a copy of such data, provide your databases to that new company, or bring in the data from the company that you acquired? And likewise, the technology, we talked about the technology aspect. The systems aspects. What happens to the systems? You clone copies of these systems, you bring in new systems, or do you recreate them? Or if they are aging systems, is it the time to maybe get a brand new system for the new merged organization or the divested organization? And likewise, the whole playbook begins to play out. Now, what I've laid out may sound like something that you as an enterprise architect has been involved in or may not. And there are playbooks out there. Either consultants provide them, because you're going to have consultants engaged or third parties engaged who are advising on the M&A and the set of activities. And as an EA, this is going to be a journey for you. You're going to be involved for maybe 6 months, 8 months, 12 months for the duration of this exercise till the strategy is realized. And all that while, you're going to focus on bridging the gap between the business and the technology. And that is the sweet spot we as enterprise architects play in. Now, the other aspect I was reflecting on in this M&A is, before an M&A happens, as a part of your strategic roadmap, as a part of your roadmap reviews, enterprise architects might be reading the tea leaves. Like in our case, it really jumped out for the past 3 to 4 years as to how and when the diabetes business could get decoupled from the mothership. And the tea leaves were out there pretty obvious, because the service contracts, the services were managed very distinctly for diabetes, because the business operations were very distinct. Likewise, the sourcing, the IT systems for some of the operations were also very distinct. So it was pretty obvious. Now, when that was going to happen, when they would pull the trigger, and when the business leaders were going to make it happen, was a purely business decision that the business leaders take at a right point in time. We as EAs get involved in the advisory role and to make it happen. And this is the sweet spot that I love to kind of engage in, which is the realization of strategy.